Hello, everyone. This is the Easy Allies podcast. I'm Kyle Bossman, the Dark Prince of Nerd Culture. Joining us this week, we have Michael Damiani.
How's it going?
Ben Moore.
Hey.
Brandon Jones.
Yeah.
And making this all happen, Ian Hink.
I feel like I want you to unpack that.
The Dark Prince of Nerd Culture. Jones, if you would, please start corrections music. You're going with this week.
Yeah, we'll try. We'll try it.
Okay. So there was a Family Matters episode with a Love Hotel, but also Fresh Prince and also The Simpsons.
And you couldn't find it? Why couldn't we find it if it existed?
Well, I don't think it was the episode I was thinking of, because in the Family Matters one, it's a very particular, like, romantic hotel room. Whereas in the Fresh Prince one, it was, like, very thematic. Like, each room had a theme to it, which is like Luigi's Mansion 3, which is how we got there.
Got it.
I think Simpsons also had the theme to the Love Hotels.
Simpsons also did that, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think, like, when you grow up and you watch these shows, you just assume, like, oh, these are regular things.
Yeah.
This must be a thing.
Season 6, you're gonna get to Love Hotel at some point.
Yes. Your show sucks if it doesn't have a Love Hotel episode. Grunty's Revenge and Banjo Pilot are Game Boy Advance games.
Yeah.
Okay. Are they good?
They're okay.
Okay. Okay.
Let me guess, you just said there were only 3 Banjo games or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
I said there were 2.
Or 2,
Yeah. Is Grunty's Revenge, like, isometric?
Yes.
I bet it's.
And the pilot one side-scrolling, yeah.
Whoa, really?
Whoa.
Follow Pilot, yeah.
Okay, so
Pretty
follow
sure
up, let me know in the comments. It probably won't be a correction next week, but I'm actually curious if those games are worth playing. Lots of PlayStation corrections. Here we go. If you buy PlayStation Now, you don't need PlayStation Plus to play online. There is a weird stipulation with GTA 5 where you need to download it to play online. You can't use the streaming version of GTA 5 online, but all other games you can do multiplayer online with. Key titles like God of War will only be available on PlayStation Now for 3 months. So there's, like, special titles that will not be available forever. And PlayStation Plus games are unplayable when you stop subscribing. So they'll be on your hard drive. You click on it. It's like, nah, dude, you don't pay anymore. Sorry. Just Dance 2020 is coming out on the Wii. And corrections music, please.
Nice.
Still going. When's the last year? Ian, I'm going to make you say this out loud.
Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge 72 on Metacritic.
And we know what that means, so don't even bother writing the comment about how it's still kind of good. 72 on Metacritic means your game is bad, and I won't spend a time looking at it. To me, Ian, that's higher than I expected, 72.
It was way higher than I expected.
I now want to try it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let me look into that. That's pretty interesting. Game Boy Advance one. Oh, we have a couple of updates too. Just the one. So we talked about last week. Briefly breezed over the Game Daily article about how it was tying Sean Layden's firing to the inner workings of Sony and maybe some upheavals of power and things like that. Didn't want to get too into it. One particular part's been refuted from Jason Schreier, where they talked to one publisher, third-party publisher, who said they were behind in communicating things to them. Schreier tweeted, in regards to something we'll talk about later, lots of good next-gen details in here. I'm on paternity leave, but did ask a couple of people about some rumors last week that Sony was communicating poorly about the PS5 and heard the exact opposite. One third-party dev said the hardware was excellent, and tools were on time. Again, I don't want to make a discussion out of that because it's just another person tweeting another thing, but did want to at least put that into updates. Cool. Panel. This is the very week that the PlayStation 5 was truly announced. And yet, it's not the leading story of this podcast. We're leading with an esports story. Now, why would I do that, you may ask? Great question. This is a weird esports story. This is one where I think it's, like, bigger than esports. This is one where it's like, it's juicier. It's like, it gets people riled up in all the right ways. And so, like, I think we got to lead with this. What happened this week? So, Blizzard is, it's a video game publisher. It's a big company. Activision Blizzard, if you must. There was a tournament on Monday, the Asia Pacific Grandmaster Tournament. This is for Hearthstone. the competitor named Blitzchung, or who goes by Blitzchung, was doing a post-game interview in which he was wearing goggles and a mask, which is iconography of Hong Kong protesters. It's what they like. It's like when you're wearing that, that's what that means. You're supporting that. But not only that, he said, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our time." And then the two hosts during that time were like, they had their heads down. They were like hiding their faces. 2 days later, that competitor, Blitzchung, and he was banned from Hearthstone for a full year. His $3,000 of winnings from that tournament were revoked. He's not getting that money from Blizzard. And also those two casters, the two people interviewing him, were fired. And so that happened earlier this week, right? I thought by the time we record this podcast, Blizzard would have apologized. I legitimately thought this wouldn't be as big of a deal today when I heard this happening earlier this week. Blizzard has not apologized. They've stuck by this. And to me, that's kind of the headline. Like, this is just happening.
This is a huge deal.
Okay, Ben, why is this a huge deal?
It's a huge deal for a lot of reasons, and it's a story that I've been following very closely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a story that has made me personally pretty upset because the way that Blizzard handled it, the severity of the action, the fact that they aren't responding, and what Blizzard has said and supposedly been about in the past are all coming into pretty intense conflict.
Yeah. Before we dig even further, we have to read, Blizzard's response. So they made a post. And so here's their defense. This is their rationale. Here we go. Engaging in any act that, in Blizzard's sole discretion, brings you into public or disrepute, offends a portion or group of the public, or otherwise damages Blizzard image. Okay, that's just what it's referred to. Is otherwise damages Blizzard image will result in removal from Grandmasters and reduction of the player's prize total to $0 in addition to other remedies which may be provided for under the handbook and Blizzard's website terms. So one of three things happened. Blitzchung either brought himself into public disrepute, offended a portion of or group of the public, or otherwise damaged Blizzard's image. I don't know if he did any of those things.
He definitely didn't damage Blizzard's image.
Right?
compared to how much they damaged it themselves.
Yes.
That's a pretty funny accusation.
Right.
I don't know if it's fair to call any of it funny, but that's like ironic, I guess. That's bizarre. Very short too. I mean, they were just like, that was almost kind of like a copy paste, like from a contract or something. Like that's just very not something a human being writes and sends that out.
Oh, sure. I think this is what all competitors have signed, and yeah.
It's a catch-all thing, right? Like the language in there is so vague that of course they can throw this up there as a defense when really it's just like, no, we want that money from China. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And I guess so it's worth bringing up, and I don't think this is what this is. 5% of Activision Blizzard is owned by Tencent, the huge corporation of China. I kind of think it's less appeasing that 5% and more appeasing China, more appeasing this Chinese business that they're so invested in.
Right.
They just want to continue making money in China, and you cannot do that if they see you supporting Hong Kong protesters.
There was even a post on a Chinese social media site from Blizzard China that I'd have to pull up the exact quote, but said something along the lines of like, "Hey, we're really sorry about this. We'll, fight for the pride of the country." And so it definitely all signs point to we really don't want to step on China's toes, which. It's just crazy to me that this kind of like you think about what Blitzchung said and what he's doing and what he believes in and the severity of the response and the absolute silence that has followed. Like it's chilling, I think.
Yeah. He's not inciting violence, right?
No.
It's just like he's not being like cruel to a group. He is simply supporting a cause. Man, and it is just so Ben, I could see Activision Blizzard of China making that tweet, right? Because it's hard to be an international corporation. And so like I can see them doing that, just thinking that's the right thing. And then Activision Blizzard corporate saying, "Oh, okay, actually we got to clean this up a little bit. Obviously we'll pay him. Obviously, you know what I mean? We shouldn't ban him for a year for saying these things." They've not. They've just backed that up. To this point, at the point of this recording, they're just dealing with all this flack. All these people who say, wait, you can't take this person's money away for simply supporting this one cause in a post-game interview.
Right.
I found the translation if you want.
Oh, please, Ian.
So this is from IGN reporting on Blizzard's official Weibo account, Weibo.
Yeah, let's look at their Twitter.
Yeah. This is an independent translation that IGN secured, so I'm going to read it. It's about a paragraph. We express our strong indignation or resentment and condemnation of these events that occurred in the Hearthstone Asia-Pacific competition last weekend and absolutely oppose the dissemination of personal political ideas during any events or games. The players involved will be banned, and the commentators involved will be immediately terminated from any official business. Also, we will protect or safeguard our national dignity or honor. Whoa.
Yeah.
It's not just Blizzard, though. I mean, in light of this, you also have the NBA controversy, which is very similar to what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And then you have other companies coming out and apologizing to China. Like, it just shows the power that they have. And there's this conversation going on where they're like, hey, Blizzard just doesn't want to have their esports be a political platform for people. That's not what it's about. It's about competition, but that's not what's going on here. I think that's a convenient thing to bring up, where you have to look at the context of what is being said, and somebody is just trying the best that they can, what they believe is right, to bring up a very serious issue in the face of an authoritarian government. Mm-hmm. That's not somebody just stoking political fires. That is somebody trying to stand up for what they believe in. And that's really frustrating. And plenty of people have pointed this out, and they're absolutely right. Those are the kinds of stories that Blizzard tells. That's exactly the reason why so many people love Blizzard. I mean, you go back as recent as Overwatch, and it's just the world needs more heroes. Mm-hmm. And then you go to BlizzCon, and you have former CEO Mike Morhaime saying like, "Hey, this is a place for everybody. Come to BlizzCon. You're all welcome here." And then you take somebody who's standing up for what they believe in, and you effectively silence them, and you send a message very directly: don't speak out against this government that is absolutely terrifying in so many different ways. Like, how do you sit with that? How do you just become okay with that?
Yeah. So Ben, do you expect Blizzard to make a statement before BlizzCon, or do you think they expect them to just kind of coast and hope this fades before everybody starts dancing and celebrating their new announcements?
I don't know. I really don't know what to think, because what do they say? Like, at this point, what do they say?
They even could have said that excuse that you brought up, just like, hey, we didn't want this to be a platform for any political speech. We would have done this if anybody said anything. Like, we wouldn't believe them, but they at least could have made a statement.
Right.
It's
it's frustrating because it seemed like some, like Blizzard Unified needs to comment about this. All decisions come from same Blizzard mouth. And mm-hmm. like, you could have had the lawyers come out and be like, look, it's right there in black and white. Like, you signed this, you signed up for this, you couldn't have done that. And then, good cop comes in the room, and it's just some representative from Blizzard or like some video that they could put out, or just some long statement of like, this, even if they did, wrapped up the statement poorly, even just opening with, this is complicated. Like, this is a difficult situation. Like, we recognize doing business here creates this difficult thing. This could potentially, in the future, cause us to maybe change our policies, or something like this hasn't come up yet, and so this is something we are talking about, internally. And then if we come around to BlizzCon and like they haven't said anything or done anything, we're like, well, damn. Like, then we can resent them. But they were like, no, it's hate or nothing. Like, you are literally just gonna be the enemy. And that's really what's mind blowing to me, Ben. Is not that like how do the execs sleep at night? How can they do this? I know how they can do that. Like, I know that they can just be very upfront about like, hey, it's not personal, it's business, Sonny. Like, I could totally see them, being like, this is just the way that we operate. But if they operate that way and then are surprised, that they're getting this kind of reaction, or would be surprised, if they got a negative reaction at BlizzCon, then that is ridiculous. I think that's kind of where my headspace is at right now.
Yeah. So I mean, it's popped up a couple of times on this very podcast. Basically, the way most businesses deal with it is you just have a Chinese version of your business. If you want to make money in China, you just play by China's rules and you have your own little Chinese version of your business. This is happening because this was an international tournament. This is happening because Blizzard wanted everyone involved with Hearthstone worldwide, right? Like when we talked about like Rainbow Six Siege, and it's just like, hey, we're going to take out the casinos for everybody. We're going to take out the slot machines for everybody. It's like, what? Don't take those out. And they're like, okay. Only China has the slot machines gone. And we're all okay with it. It's like, fine. Sorry, China. You live there. You have to deal with that censorship. So in this case, it is, I guess, the international part of it is what makes this a big deal, an international problem. How much do we hold Blizzard accountable? How much, Jones, I get the business people saying, hey, it's just business. And then so what do we do?
But maybe this is naive.
Sure.
But like, I can't just sit there and be like, it's business to everything that's like, you have to draw your own line, right?
Yeah, where do we draw our own line? Where do we do this, dude? Damiani's got something.
I mean, I think there needs to be a very strong response against Blizzard. I mean, it's not just their like no answer reply. Basically, let's like refer to our handbook. This is like our policy. The fact that they are cracking down on not letting people delete their BlizzNet accounts or whatever because they're making.
That was misreported.
Oh, it was misreported.
So
okay.
the Blizzard people thought that Blizzard wasn't letting people delete their Battle.net accounts. That wasn't the case. Apparently, I believe it had something to do with the high volume. There's a high volume of people.
Too many people
trying to do it.
Okay.
And so there was some sort of bottleneck. It wasn't them actively going and saying, hey, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And so people that were trying and failing before were eventually able to do it. So it wasn't them shutting that down.
Was the recent thing that happened with the American University, there's a collegiate event with Hearthstone, and they protested on it, some students from it, expecting to be reprimanded, and then Blizzard decided to said, oh, that wasn't really political or anything or something like that. You're not getting penalized. And the American University decided to forfeit anyway, saying like, look, so you're not going to punish our casters and our players for protesting, but you punish this other player.
So this happened recently?
Yeah,
okay.
recently, after all this went down. So like, no, your policy, we just proved your policies are inconsistent, so you're full of shit. So yeah, we're not going to participate in this more. What's his face? Important person involved with WoW Classic said, I'm not supporting Blizzard anymore. This is also bullshit. And honestly, if Blizzard thinks they can just say nothing, like people should just boycott BlizzCon. Like, shouldn't be any coverage of it. Like, if they want to do their big Diablo 4 announcement, who cares? Like, no one, just like ignore it.
This podcast included?
Yeah, just ignore it. Just be like, hey, come out and say something. Be a little bit more, like, stick to your convictions. The fact that your own employees had to go out and, like, cover up the line on your orc statue at the Irvine Blizzard compound saying, like, we support, like, everyone's, like, voice and, like, freedom of speech or whatever. It's like, nope, you don't really do that. You don't really stand for that. It's just, like, empty words. You don't really stand for your conviction. You just say stuff that sounds nice because it's nice sounding PR. But when push comes to shove, I'm not ignorant. I get it's a business. Like, people's jobs and livelihoods are involved. But at the same time, you have to live with yourself and your own like ethics, as you were saying, Ben. Like, you have to draw a line somewhere. Like, where do you stand? And can you go to sleep at night knowing that like you're doing business with a government that has done, like, listen, there are a lot of bad governments. Our government isn't great either, but at the same time, the stuff being reported about the atrocities going on over there is like, them trying to silence any kind of dissent is like, do you really want to stand for that? You know, that's not a good message to send, I think. And honestly, yeah, we talked about like the NBA, like the commissioner tried to do a statement backing up after the Houston Rockets GM basically said like, hey, I stand with Hong Kong and stuff. And China's like, you're banned, like you're done, NBA. You can't do any business here anymore until you like, it's not just apologize. They basically want the guy fired. And commissioner's like, you know what? We understand like your position and stuff, but we also believe in our freedom of speech. We also believe that people should be able to express themselves. We don't censor people here. And that's where he left it. You know, it could have been a little bit more strong worded. And then like Genesis is having a really bad time right now. I mean, even like South Park going after them and then them getting banned as well. I mean, they knew they were going to get banned, but like they couldn't have been like the best timing for that possible. It's just like, what is it going to take? Like,
so yeah, that's where I sympathize with Hong Kong. Is like this idea of a government where they can just make South Park disappear off of the internet one night is terrifying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
like-
what Hong Kong's scared of. They're like, oh, we don't want them involved with us. We don't want to get arrested and have to go to China, right? And like that effectively makes China your own government.
They don't want to
too.
go to the
That-
mainland. Yeah.
But that comparison is a huge part of the problem. Is you think about the Houston Rockets case and the tweet that he sent, like, and then you think about Blitzchung, and it's not like these people are inciting violence or saying something completely ridiculous. It is like relatively mild protesting, and it is a complete quashing. I mean, it is an authoritarian foot stomping down, and you have these American companies facilitating it and making sure that it is appeasing the people that want them to be silenced.
Yeah, and I think that's the huge line. You know what I mean? And so like, if McDonald's wants to sell chicken nuggets in China, I think we all get it, right? But it's just like, Ben, is that participation is when it's just like, come on, man. That's where it's just like, you can't have both. And so Blizzard can absolutely ban anyone who speaks ill of China, but it's like that's your business now, and you have to deal with the people who would leave. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's like you can make that choice, absolutely, but then you lose the people from this country and many others most likely who don't like that kind of behavior.
Then, Kyle, then that I feel like begs the question and is kind of like where we need to get into a long-term discussion. I think both just as general consumers and then as people who cover video games is, all right, this is obviously a problem right now, and people are responding to it, and consumers are showing that they don't like this. How much of an impact is that really having? How like, is this just like them being like, you know, people are going to be upset, a few people are going to cancel their Battle.net accounts, whatever, but we'll keep China happy, and this will all blow over, and it won't be a big deal. Like, is that the conversation that's happening right now behind closed doors?
Almost sure it is. Like, think of like the Diablo 3 launch and how mad people were. They probably just think they can do that again, man.
And like that's why they're strange bedfellows, is because it's like, you know, you have the government in China that's just like, we're gonna get away with this. This is fine. Like we can just poof, that goes away in 2019. And like for how crazy that kind of thinking is, you know, for us coming from, you know, living in the States, of like, you just can't do that forever. Like that's not, you know, like silencing this stuff, just pushing it to the side. Like not only is this society at a point right now where that's probably not going to fly, but as the years go on and on and on, like technology gets better, social interaction get better. Like the people that you're trying to suppress are getting more and more tools as time goes on to work against this. So you're really just delaying the inevitable. And it's interesting to kind of see Blizzard in the same position of like, oh, China's great. You know, they go and just like have this massive audience. And like, you always hear, you know, across from entertainment or anywhere, somebody's like, man, if we could just get into China. And it's kind of like, well, here's the price of admissions and go into this gigantic country that you're now caught up in the politics of anywhere that you're going and, you know, not only doing business, but broadcasting your business to the entire world.
Yeah.
To, you know, the hungry, you know, entertainment seekers, and then just being like, oh, wait, but we can't do this either. It's like you're both delusional. Your days are numbered. And so I don't want to just say, you know, I'll kick back and that the solution, you know, that the situation is going to resolve itself.
Are you saying the days of China are numbered?
No, but just the days of their anonymity, you know, like the days of putting up these walls. Like you can't do that forever.
Because
we're
becoming
not going to
connected of a planet?
Yeah, and we're not going to forget after all of that's done that like, oh yeah, didn't China do something weird with their securities? I don't know. It's like this is something we will always remember Blizzard for. This is something that is surely permanently going to stain people's impressions of following these events. Looking forward to them. And what a wonderful platform you have now given to anyone involved in this space, playing any game in the esports space, working in China, and just being like, I now have to kind of become involved in this. Man, even more so because they tried to silence it. That's the craziest thing.
I know. I want them to, I'm trying to think of the fix, and I think the fix is, hey, here's your $3,000 back. In fact, here's $3,000 more. We're reinstating you. Say whatever you want. But then I think China gets mad again.
Yeah.
I think, I can't think of the fix right now.
The fix is, what do you value more? Do you value continuing to do business in China, or do you value coming out on the right side and being like, businesses survived before they did all these businesses survived and thrived before they did business in China.
Right.
It's not yes, you will lose money if you have to pull out of China, but you absolutely can survive without it. And the other thing is, I don't know, when we're some sort of along the lines you were talking about, Jones, but China already has anyone they've let come in there and do business. They eventually just make their own version of it, and then eventually dismiss that company out of here. Sure. It's you can do business here for a while, but eventually we're gonna have our own successor to it, and then we don't need you anymore. And that's just this this gold mine that they think China is. I think it's only gonna last for so long for foreign companies, and then they're eventually gonna be shown the door and be even if you're playing by rules, we don't care anymore. We have complete control over this version of it.
We have our own Diablo.
Yeah. We have our own social media. We don't need you, Twitter, YouTube, or anything like that.
Yeah.
We're not even gonna need you, Google. You can go away too. They don't need stuff like that. They're not gonna need a Blizzard. They'll be hey, we're get our own game service stuff and our own version. Get out of here. We don't actually need you and stuff. And honestly, I feel it's more important to just have a strong worded statement saying Blizzard is. I get it. People have to decide what they want to do at the end of the day, and some people might be risking their jobs by speaking out and doing that. But it's do you really want to be at a place where you have that hanging over you constantly that you agreed to go along with this? I agreed to go along with this policy of enforcing. It is morally wrong, but it's better for the company. It's good for the company, but screw everyone else. And there's some executives who they don't give a shit. They don't care about that. They're fine.
Fighting through those moral restraints is a skill that you have as an executive, and especially if they tossed out that's why, Reggie Fils-Aimés are such a gift to the world. That's why you see some of these people are genuinely excited, when you see them at any level, of their business. And, it's. I think with the legal thing that they tossed out first, they're going to stonewall this entire thing. They're going to stonewall into the ground.
You think they're not going to try to fix this?
Blizzard? I think they're gonna stroll right into BlizzCon hey. And
I know, man. I know. That is what I'm
because they did a legal
of.
thing. It's anything that they say now is potentially. Again, I'm not going to hogue this thing, but I would imagine anything they say now is going to be seen as backpedaling, and.
Well, and also
it's not going to be enough to satiate China, and it's not going to be enough to satiate their fan base, and it's going to piss everybody off. So they're just going to bury deep.
Also, I think China is such a huge market. I think we're underestimating the power of Chinese money because, look at something like Riot or some of these other companies that have a bigger foothold over there. America is the smaller part of their profit base. We matter less than the Chinese dollars. And that's true of Marvel movies, a lot of stuff like that. That's true of Riot. I don't know the numbers, so I'm not going to guess. But I know that we're a smaller share, I think, in League of Legends, And it's
I think Riot was bought.
Riot was bought by Tencent, so they're owned by a Chinese company.
That's all Chinese.
But
money.
Their base is it's bigger there than it is here, and in South Korea, and other countries other than America, Yeah. So I think it's I don't know, American centric to think that we have in the Blizzard thing is if you want to look at it brass tacks, right now, some article I saw 5 to 10% of Blizzard's money comes from China, right? That's right now. They're waiting, Activision Blizzard is waiting for Call of Duty Mobile or whatever to be approved there. Mobile does gangbusters over there. So it's to hurt Blizzard, we would have to do more than the projections of profit that mobile app and all future mobile apps would do to make them reconsider. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I think
hit 'em where
Damiani
they
made a good
live.
point that's short term. That's not like that number is going to go down.
But it supports Ian's point though. Like
no, like short term, I'm saying America matters less than China.
Yeah.
In their mind.
Yeah, I do want to say though, I think in the case of Marvel movies, the U.S. market still is bigger, but
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
the Chinese one is growing,
Is
and that's
huge,
that's
yeah.
what is most attractive is just this growth and this potential.
Right. That's what I'm saying is like the potential for growth is larger just because there are more people.
But with Damiani, I think it's fake. I do think it's fake potential.
Maybe.
I like even like with Marvel movies. I think eventually China will just have their own film market that just like we don't screw you like we don't need Disney here. We'll make our own versions of this stuff.
I mean,
because
Huber
our
and
our market's bigger. We'll make so much more money here. We like why would we give any concessions to? I think they're just have very strong nationalistic identity there. They don't want. They'll eventually just want more control, and they just won't want foreign businesses doing business there because they could have complete control over their own, like a sovereign business versus a foreign one.
Huber and I were looking at the top grossing films of all time, and I do believe 2 of them were Chinese produced. One of them was animated.
Wait,
Looked
what?
kind of cool. Yeah, The Wandering Earth was one of them, and the other one, I don't remember the name. I think it started with an N. It's CG. I'll look it up. But yeah,
So I'm sorry, 2 of like the top 10 were?
top 10 highest grossing films of all time.
Got
I
it.
think that was the list he was looking at.
Got you.
I'll
I thought you said
double-check.
like the top 2, and I'm like, what?
Top 10.
Yeah,
It
got
was
it.
like 6 and 8 or
Film, but there were films made in China, though.
Yeah.
You're saying
Chinese films are in
Yeah,
the
so
top
that's
10.
what they're
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
As they keep growing, they'll have more of those. They'll have they might own the top 10, which just means they don't need anyone else. So why would they like want to do business with like
Well,
Disney
but I
or
mean
something like that?
that's precisely why I think these companies are trying to get in now while the getting is good.
Oh, yes, I agree.
Because,
I
like,
agree with you.
Yeah,
Then. Yes,
like
yes,
if
yes.
if an American company can be a part of that upswing and isn't replaced, can you imagine? Like the money they're going to make is staggering.
This is what's so disgusting about all of it is like that's what they want. They want to have all of the money and none of the consequences. And they just so desperately wish that they could completely separate the two and put one of those things in a corner and just focus about market share and money and growth. When, like, if you just take a look at it and you stare at it for like a second, like you can't separate those things. Like if you go down that path, you have to accept everything else as well. And it's just like, I don't know. It feels really hard to take Blizzard at face value. And I think the reason why this particular story has me so riled up is it's not like I was a Blizzard fan yesterday. You know what I mean? Like this is a company that has really meant a lot to me, and not just to me. It's the sense of community that they've built up over the years. And Blizzard was synonymous with quality. And it felt like they were always pushing ahead. They were always moving forward. They had their finger on the pulse. And this just seems like so cold and detached and distant. It's like, I don't even recognize you. And so, like, hey, you're going to have me come to BlizzCon, and it's all like, woo, woo, rah, rah, as long as, like, I don't say anything that could hurt your bottom line.
Yeah.
Like, no. No.
Ben, me too. Like,
Yeah.
they've been on a downturn of public opinion for the last year, I'd say, since last BlizzCon. I really still thought they would have fixed this by now. And now, like, throughout this conversation, it's become more clear to me that a week from now, there might still be nothing.
And all the devs are going to take a hit across the board because a lot of this anger is going to be redirected at them because these execs don't have Twitter accounts. These guys aren't, like, or if they do, they're just not very public facing people. The ones actually like
Jones,
making these hard decisions.
This is hitting national media, though. I think they're
Yeah.
aware. I think this one is actually big enough to where, like, the execs know they're having a meeting, as Ben
Oh,
said.
they're aware, but
Yeah.
we're not aware of them. We're not following them beat by beat. Whereas the first person that walks out on stage on BlizzCon, like that person did not make the decision. That person, this is not their fault.
Yeah.
And they're just throwing that person out to be like the front face of the company. And it's a bummer. It's a bummer
quick
for anyone who
correction.
didn't make this decision that works at that company.
Let me correct myself before the thing. I found the list Huber was looking at. It was for just this year.
Oh, okay.
Highest grossing was 8 and 9. Neja and The Wandering Earth, Chinese produced films, just this year. I misspoke.
Kyle, you brought up, I think, a very good point about public opinion in Blizzard. I think for me, something that really registered is Blizzard has made a lot of mistakes, and they've had a lot of flashpoints of criticism, but it always felt like an evolving conversation. I mean, World of Warcraft Classic, I think, is a pretty prime example, where initially Blizzard seemed kind of arrogant, like, what? Why do you guys keep talking about the old version of this game? You don't want this. You don't need this. You think you want it, but you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, it was an evolving conversation. And then suddenly they have World of Warcraft Classic come out, and it gets this huge response. It's very warmly received.
Suddenly they realized they could make money by putting it out.
Sure. I think that's a totally valid perspective to take, but it seemed like there was a back and forth there. And I could even see that happening with something like Diablo Immortal, where it's like, hey, this is happening, but we also have these other projects that we think will hit you guys in a better way. Like, this is more of what we want. We're listening to you. Whereas this just is like, what's the conversation here? It's like, it's not something where, like, in fact, what if there are huge announcements at BlizzCon, it almost makes it worse. It's like, hey, Jingling Keys, please don't worry about Hong Kong. You're going to have to think about what your barbarian build is going to be in Diablo 4. Like, that almost makes the whole thing way worse.
Yeah.
And it just seems like a situation where you just have to pick a side.
Yeah.
You're either for this or you're against it. I don't know.
That's kind of like, I was sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, what would they have to do to win me back? You know, and I'm like, I could cut them loose without really batting an eye. Like, I like Diablo, you know, but it's like, what would they have to do to fix this? Is it possible? Also, like, I guess I'm pretty sardonic when it comes to corporations. I assume they're all evil like this, and we just hear about it from time to time, and then we learn who to boycott. But it's like, they're probably all bad, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. I don't think there's any corporation who wants to say we side with Hong Kong because that's scary to them.
Right.
Blizzard's been forced into this position. And it would be so fun to have to get a statement from every single video game publisher, like, "Hey, well, how do you feel about this?"
Yeah, 'cause they all do business.
But isn't that ultimately a good thing, though? Like Ian is saying, right, and what we mentioned with other companies at the beginning is like, hey, this is a pretty pervasive problem.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is just making everybody more aware.
Yeah.
And it's turning the pressure up, and I think it's a situation that now has more exposure, and I think is going to be harder to just do quietly, I guess.
Which is great.
But for me, like, the other, like, pernicious side of this is, like, it's making me just feel more and more that my money is dirty no matter where it goes.
Oh, that's the truth.
You know?
Yeah.
No, but it's like, it's like somehow, like, my money is burning down rainforests, you know, is buying guns, is doing everything. And it's just like, how is it possible to stop it? Like,
No, simply to exist as a human is immoral. Yeah.
Right. Like that, but in our modern times, that seems to be true.
Yeah.
Like, we're all bad.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle,
And so we just have to do what we can, I guess.
like, we talked about the THQ Nordic situation, which was earlier this year as well. But I personally feel in an uncomfortable position where I do feel strongly about this.
Mm-hmm.
How do we handle this going forward? I mean, how do we handle BlizzCon? How do we handle Call of Duty Modern Warfare? How do we handle Diablo 4? How do we handle Overwatch 2? You know, theoretical things.
I would love to ignore BlizzCon. I think that'd be so fun.
I tried
Do a non
Can we-
BlizzCon stream.
saying that
Yes.
with blood, and I don't know.
Can we just
Just call
watch?
it not BlizzCon.
Can we just watch Winnie the Pooh instead and call it our BlizzCon?
Are we allowed to say what Blood said? Is he opposed?
No, he actually. I mean, I don't want to put words in Blood's mouth, but
Yeah.
like I was talking with this about him about this with him earlier today, and he was saying, like, it's going to be really hard if they announce Diablo 4 not to talk about it, but like we can not cover BlizzCon. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? It's just like we're a media company. It's like, if they announce Diablo 4, are we just not going to talk about it? I would love to not talk about it, but like that seems crazy too. Like, I don't know. Again, not speaking for Bloodworth. He can speak for himself. But
Yeah.
But what can
Go ahead, Damiani.
Let's say, I mean, what are you gonna, like? If Blizzard doesn't do anything, we just head into BlizzCon with things as is right now. I mean, what is the conversation around Diablo 4 you're gonna have? Are you gonna be like all like happy and be like, whoa, but Diablo 4, let's like talk about all the new mechanics and everything, or it's like, do you actually have a conversation about like how is this reveal tainted by the fact that like they're still mired in this controversy? I mean, I think the latter conversation is still worthwhile to have.
Yeah.
Because it's still calling them out on it. But I mean, so if you don't want to ignore it completely, sure, you just talk about it in the right light. But at the same time, if you're looking for like more traditional coverage, like part of like the hype machines, like no, like we're not gonna like doing a reaction to it. Like no, that's. Like I do not feel good doing that with the current state of things with them. It's like I will not participate in that. Like sorry, like just do something to win my like trust back that you will that you're not going to just trying to sweep this under the rug and hope enough time goes by and people forget about it.
It's funny. There's the roots of responsibility too, right? So Blizzard is technically Activision Blizzard,
Yes,
and so then we treat
Right.
Activision games the same way.
I mean, I think we do. We we flipped the. This copy was provided by PlayStation. We flip that on its head, and every time we talk about Blizzard, we just have like a boilerplate statement like, "Blizzard is corporate trash." Like
That's something, Ian. That's a solution. I'm listening.
Like anytime Blizzard comes up, we have to have a statement like that. Okay.
This is just a hypothetical, and I don't. This is not my area of expertise, but I am curious, especially when you have a giant company like Activision Blizzard who is international. I wonder if there's any real conflict between different branches in different countries and how they view a situation and how that conflict is communicated and how you get everybody on the same page. I wonder what that is like. If there are different countries viewing a sensitive situation in a totally different light. Like that's fascinating to me. And I don't know how if there is that kind of division, how you overcome that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what's amazing about living in such an interconnected world, right? Is like anything you say is going to be taken, 1,000 different ways by every different person, and you can't please everybody, Like, I thought about not being on the like Joker spoiler mode, just because I didn't like it, and it's like, well, what am I gonna do? Hide, Like,
Right.
Yeah, it's like no matter what you do, you can't please everybody.
But the crazy thing to me about this situation is it doesn't seem like you need to sit there and explain it for 10 minutes. Like, it's really not that complicated from the looks of it. It's just the Chinese government doesn't want you to speak out, and this company is going along with it. Like, it seems pretty nakedly gross.
Yeah, and it totally is.
It's really weird too because it's like, just let that guy. Like, if you're a corporation and someone speaks out, just let them. Like, even like Blizzard, this is still gross, but they could have just on Chinese social media say like, say they didn't agree with this guy or whatever, but like left it at that. Like, it's still his opinion, right? Like, just let people's opinions be their opinions, and don't make your company reflect on them. I don't know, right? Like, I'm trying like damage control wise, like in this situation, right? That would have been a better thing for them to do.
It's not their style.
Unfortunately. I guess their style is just blowing it up.
They like to silence journalists. It's
yeah,
rough, man.
that
It's
was the
just-
statement they put out when the NBA commissioner, that apology they put out, but they tried to defend it at the end, saying it was free speech. China's government replied back saying, "We do not believe that any criticisms against our sovereignty is free speech."
It's like,
It's
but
like-
that's the
Yeah.
very
So they're like,
definition
yeah,
of
they're like criticizing the government isn't free speech. It's like, that's what you're dealing with. It's like, that's
Yeah.
what you're going up against. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's still a little dangerous because, I mean, it is a big deal what's going over in Hong Kong right now. And like people putting their lives on the, line there. And like, as you said, like they make people disappear and stuff. Like they don't like, oh, this person says something negative. It's like, no, we vanish them. Like if we really want to, it doesn't matter who you are. And that's just a very scary, dangerous level of authoritative control there that I think, yeah, I just wish there was a little bit more pushback on that right now because I think because the video game industry, like more than just like Blizzard, it's just, as you said, Ian, it's so interconnected, it's international. I think it's a chance for the industry to stand up together and maybe say something. But as you said, that would like involve a lot of companies making statements, and a lot of them also do business in China. And it's like, it's opening a Pandora's box there, but I mean, I feel like with everything going on, it might inevitably just go to that because it's bigger than games right now. It's like in both sports, it's in like media, it's just a hot button topic right now, and unless something like cools that fire, which I doubt, something's got to give, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, honestly.
Cash rules everything around me.
Is that a lyric?
Yeah, Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh, okay, nice. Go look at that. Sounds like it's podcast halftime.
It's not the Wu-Tang Clan, sadly. The following are the official sponsors of Easy Allies for the month of October. L. Thanis. Car Keys Express. If you need a replacement car key or a remote, check out carkeysexpress.com/store. Use the coupon code EZA at checkout for free shipping and 10% off of your order. They are proud sponsors of Easy Allies. Our gifted sponsor is SOS Children's Villages. Children are at the heart of everything SOS Children's Villages does, regardless of where they are in the world. SOS Children's Villages is the largest non-governmental organization dedicated to the long-term care of orphaned and abandoned children across the globe. For more information and to donate, the link is in the description. Fantasy Critic. Do you like fantasy football? Do you also love video games? At Fantasy Critic, we put the two together. Or maybe you've already heard of Fantasy Critic, perhaps from the videos that Ian, Kyle, and Don have made. Either way, we've just introduced a new mode that'll let you start playing right now, even without a league to join. It's called Critics Royale, and in it, you will compete against the entire site to have the best roster of games for the last few months of the year. Go to fantasycritic.games now to sign up and check it out. Beaten Down Brian. Hogue Law Business Law Firm. Whether you're starting a business at level 1, stuck fighting the dreaded fundraising boss, or finally cashing out with a well-earned high score, you need a good business lawyer at your side. Or at least that Good Business Lawyer's YouTube and podcast series, Virtual Legality. This week in Virtual Legality, Hogue discusses Gearbox's Randy Pitchford and his lawsuit settlement, Blizzard's quote-unquote difficulties with US-China relations, and more. Check it all out at youtube.com/HOEG Law or on your favorite podcast service. And our mega sponsor, ViewSonic. Ever wonder what a gaming monitor from Tron might look like? How about the most Star Trek monitor ever? The new XG27 series from ViewSonic Elite has finally dropped and looks fantastic. Featuring innovative nano IPS technology, a 1 millisecond response time, and 165 Hz refresh rate, your monitor of the future has finally arrived. Visit viewsonic.com/elite to learn more, and for giveaways and updates, follow @ViewSonic Gaming on Instagram and Twitter. All of these links are available in the description. Thank you to our sponsors.
Thank you, sponsors. And this is a quick headline that kind of ties into Fantasy Critic. We had a delay for Doom Eternal this week. Just a quick little headline.
The only cheer I heard.
That's not that. That's you don't do that for delays, Jones. You know. Oh, for my fantasy
For
season,
your
yes.
fantasy league, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's what you guys are cheering about. I was like,
No,
what?
yeah,
Why?
Yeah.
I'm not cheering because I'm bummed that it got delayed. But
Yeah.
having a fantasy games critic thing really takes the sting off of these delays if Kyle Bossman has a game in
Nice.
his team.
That was an easy 90+.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any chance this podcast gets banned in China?
I think.
We'll never make it in.
Actually, yeah, I think we'll never. I think
Yeah.
we have Chinese listeners. Actually, I think we're not enough a big enough deal to be like worth it. Wee. Yeah, it's not worth the
nice.
effort.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
other
just right
podcasts
under
have been talking
medium
about this. That they
fries.
haven't gotten
Under the
anything.
ice.
Yeah.
You're not worth silencing.
Yeah, you're not worth our. Yeah, the.
Frankly,
okay.
that's exactly where I want to be. You know?
Yeah, I get that. This would have been our leading headline any other week. The PlayStation 5 was officially revealed. Though I think it's, you know what? It doesn't even feel like a big headline. It feels super low-key the way the PlayStation 5 was officially named this week. Earlier this year, Wired had the article, the official reveal of the PlayStation 5, but they're like, we won't say what it's called yet. And then Wired again had an article this week, and it's the PlayStation 5. It's officially coming out holiday 2020. Which, again, we just kind of assumed. I'm going to hit the bullet points of Wired's article, though, because they have the good scoops. So, yeah, if you go to Wired, you'll find an article exclusive, a deeper look at the PlayStation 5. Pretty crazy. They had Jim Ryan and Mark Cerny in a room and just like, let's talk. Very, very little was said about the console itself, actually. Sony wanted to say there is ray tracing acceleration in the GPU hardware, which I believe is the statement that people were looking for. Just to make it very clear, it's not software ray tracing, which everyone kind of was like, is it though? And it's like, it's hardware, we got it. Don't misconstrue that. This is this word for word. 4K Blu-ray player will be included with this PlayStation 5 as well. I want to read some quotes, though, that I thought are kind of exciting. This one's pretty crazy. So about the UI, multiplayer game servers will provide the sorry, this is Sony speaking. Will provide the console with a set of joinable activities in real time. Single-player games will provide information like what missions you could do and what rewards you might receive for completing them, and all those choices will be visible in the UI. As a player, you just jump right into whatever you like. So that means, basically, from the menu, you'll see who's online, and without even having to go to the start menu of the game, you can just click from the main menu and like hop into a game with your buddy, is the idea there. Or even like I'm playing Dragon Quest, it's like, oh, pick up your save from here. Oh yeah, I'll do that from there, boom, be boom. Kind of neat little dumb feature. Weird thing to be like bragging about in a Wired article, totally out of context from like even seeing your console, but it's like the weird morsels they give us now.
Meaning like you load your save directly from the HUD?
Yeah.
Like the turning on the PlayStation?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's something like I never thought to ask for, but it's kind of neat.
And now once we're used to that, we're all gonna say like, man, remember when you had to see the start of every game every time?
Yeah.
So it basically turns every game on your PlayStation 5 into the last game you played on Switch. It's basically like I break up my Switch and I just go like right back into it. So to kind of do that with every game, basically.
Yeah,
every game would be in its own sleep mode.
You mean suspended state. You mean
Suspended state, yeah.
Even like I think the idea, Jones, is you have a friend playing Fortnite and you have a friend playing Halo, and you're done playing Halo. Not sure I want to talk about Halo for PlayStation 5, but you're looking at the main menu, right? And you see that friend playing Fortnite as you hover over Fortnite, and you're like, oh, instead of me going to the start menu of Fortnite, then going to the choosing free for all, choosing that, and then choosing that and that and that, you just go boom, be boom. I'm with you, buddy.
Cool.
This is so clearly just a promise on their end, though, that only first parties will adhere to. Like, there's no way you're getting rid of like 40-minute load times in Fortnite, you know?
Well, about that, we got those SSDs.
Well, third parties have to program for this, is what I'm saying.
Exactly, yeah. And that's kind of what the discussion was, is that they have that tech now and they're looking at it. Most of the conversation was about the controller. So this reporter for Wired got to touch the PlayStation 5 controller. It looks a lot like the PlayStation 4 controller. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, good.
So far, so good.
USB-C it will use. It'll have a bigger battery, so it's a little heavier. Apparently still lighter than an Xbox One controller with batteries inside, but heavier than a PlayStation 4 controller. So somewhere within that range.
Better battery for the DualShock is fantastic.
Yes. All they promised in the article was bigger battery, but we just have to pray that that also means better. Yeah,
Sure.
The two new true features are adaptive triggers and haptic feedback. For the triggers, it's basically the idea is they can change how much pressure it takes to pull the trigger on the fly, so they can emulate GameCube games. They could also just like the thing they keep bringing up is like a bow and arrow. So basically, you know, like when you are pulling a bow and arrow, it gets harder to pull it the further in you get. So there'll be that. But what was the other example in the article? Oh, that just shooting a machine gun would feel different from shooting a shotgun, just based off of what the trigger feels like to pull.
Whoa, like an arcade.
Yeah.
Cool.
Haptic feedback, I want to explain through direct quote as well, actually, because this to me was actually like, this is next gen talk. It seems fluffy. And you know what? Let me just get your own judgments off of this. First, I play through a series of short demos, courtesy of the same Japan studio that designed PlayStation VR's Astrobot Rescue Mission.
That's a good game.
Yeah, that is a good game. In the most impressive, I ran a character through a platform level featuring a number of different surfaces, all of which gave distinct and surprisingly immersive tactile experiences. Sand felt slow and sloggy. Mud felt slow and soggy. On ice, a high-frequency response made the thumbsticks really feel like my character was gliding. Jumping into a pool, I got a sense of the resistance of the water. On a wooden bridge, a bouncy sensation.
In the Shoulder buttons. Just the shoulder buttons.
No, and the
Or
whole
just
controller.
The whole controller.
So they're replacing the rumble with
Yeah.
haptic
Right.
feedback.
And then Cerny whispered in my ear, "Did you feel the bouncy sensation?"
And the bouncy sensation of the bridge. I mean,
Wait, no rumble?
No,
no
it's
rumble.
Wow.
It's all haptic now.
Interesting.
Rumble is old school. That's old tech. That's last gen.
Man, if the like responsiveness of the thumbsticks is going to be changing a lot, that's going to be weird.
I'm of two minds about this.
Sure.
Turn it off.
Because on one hand, I really do think that sounds genuinely cool.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just also feel like there is a very lengthy track record of these new features being shown off and prioritized. Look what we can do, please buy our system. And then support for those features almost falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
And that's just what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to know how transformative this will be and for how long.
Yeah. An example
Yeah,
they give
that's
after this is with GT Sport. They try haptic feedback, and it feels more like you're on the track here, and like you're like off the track, and you're like hitting something. They said that GT Sport doesn't have rumble because people got sick of it for so long, but this haptic feedback is a solution. They would put this in the next Gran Turismo game as an alternative to rumble, Ben. So like maybe this would be implemented.
Right. Maybe this is more applicable on a wide scale, I guess, than other. I don't know if gimmicks is the right word.
But it is. It
Sure.
is the right word, yeah. And it sounds like a gimmick, and it like when I got to this part of the article, it almost felt like I'm reading an advertisement as much as I'm reading, journalism.
Yeah.
Because
It's
it's
that way,
already
yeah.
weird that it's just Wired getting these scoops. It's never explained. It's like, just why do you get to announce it's the PlayStation 5 and then Sony gets to announce it later on that day? But yeah, it's just like that to me. I can't imagine this being that good, but it's so fun to read about.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it just something that will feel less invasive. Because like Rumble feels like, even with like HD Rumble, it just feels like it's just so binary, I guess. I mean, there's some subtlety to it and some variation, but like you still at the end of the day, Richard, that's rumbling. Like that's clear that my controller's shaking. Like it's nothing that special anymore. Whereas this, maybe it's, if it works as advertised, it could potentially feel like your brain and like we were playing. It doesn't like draw as much attention to it, but it also adds an extra layer. Like it, I could see it working that way, but at the same time, like everything you said, Ben, like that fear, like that's how it almost always goes down. But at the same time, I also think that like this is the initial periods where like they get a lot of money for like the development and research. Like, hey, try out stuff. Like this like might be your only chance to like try and do something like this, even if it's gonna get shut down and players like speak, hey, this isn't that good. Don't use it. I still like to see them try new and unique things like this. But there's always that voice in the back of my head says like, that seems like a waste of money. Like they could have like done something else with that, because that obviously is not going to be the thing that like drives sales of that system or what people are speaking about like a month after launch. Man, that haptic feedback. Yeah. I'm sure there'll be launch articles saying like, oh, you got to try it out. It feels legit. And like 3 months later, everyone's like, yeah, remember haptic feedback where we were talking about it and no one
so
mentions
weird.
it?
But Damiani, so the post that Jim Ryan made on the PlayStation blog is, it's called the PlayStation 5. It's coming holiday 2020.
PlayStation 5.
I have 2 things I want to tell you about. Those triggers and that haptic feedback. And it's like, what? That's all you want to say about the PlayStation? Like, they're really hitting these points, man.
That's something that's a little bit weird to me, though, because those points feel like they come from a very old playbook to me, where it's like, hey, we're going to talk to you about the new features in our controller. Whereas I feel like the conversation that Microsoft is generating, like just theoretically, it wouldn't surprise me if Microsoft says, hey, we've got all of these games that are going to be available at launch on Scarlet, and you're going to get them all on Game Pass. If you're deciding between those two systems, which one is going to be more appealing to you? Like, oh man, the adaptive triggers, and obviously this how these two compare is going to change a lot over time. I'm just saying theoretically right now, with the kind of things that Microsoft has been building up over the years and what Sony is building up right now, doesn't Microsoft seem more enticing, more pushing things forward from a service perspective than what Sony is talking about?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just seems like they could be swinging a little bigger.
Sure. One last quote I want to do, and this is just kind of interesting. It's about the solid state drive. This one got a lot of attention for the first part, but I think the second part's kind of interesting too. So this, again, directly quoting Wired's article. We're working on a big one right now, says Marco Thrush, president of Bluepoint Games, which most recently worked on last year's PlayStation 4 remake of Shadow of the Colossus. I'll let you figure out the rest. I'm like, okay. He goes on and he continues. That doesn't mean they're not exploring. The SSD has me really excited, Thrush says. You don't need to do gameplay hacks anymore to artificially slow players down, lock them behind doors, anything like that. Back in the cartridge days, games just used to load instantly. We're kind of going back to what consoles used to be. That's kind of interesting. I think that there's a lot of those in games that I'm like just kind of used to, like the Tomb Raider trick of like just getting through like a cave, like as you crawl through a tiny space, or just crawling under a thing, going up a ledge. These things that do slow you down to get you into a new area. And you know, when we talked about no load times, I think that's just an easy thing to grasp. But this idea of fewer tricks, fewer game developer hacks is really hard to grasp, I think, until we see anything like that proven in games.
Man, you saying that just made me realize, like, Monster Hunter does that all the time.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
They all do it.
Even open world games, like you're inevitably going to catch up to a texture of just like, ooh, like I was playing, Breakpoint this morning and like was just on a boat and went around a cliff and the backside of that cliff was like, wait, oh, sorry, we thought you were going the other way.
Yeah.
There it is. There's the cliff. Kind of what they were talking about with the Spider-Man demo, which, it's weird that we're getting all these different. It's like every time they show
right,
up,
that Spidey can travel faster because the speed is locked because that's as fast as it can load the city. I totally forgot about that.
Less about Spidey, just that city. That was a very taxing thing on the PlayStation 4, and I'm sure they had to do all sorts of there were all sorts of articles about it, like how they did the interiors and how they made that just that city really look alive, reflect really well.
It's hard not to be a little bit skeptical though, because at the onset of the PlayStation 4, one of the big things that they were highlighting is they were like, hey, we're going to make downloading games better. You're going to be able to play games when they're only partially downloaded. It's like, not really. Kind of. Like only
they're doing that again, by the way. That was also...
Right. And then they're like, oh, we're going to prioritize single-player and multiplayer. And it's like, kind of. Like, so all of these things that... And this is just how these cycles go. Of course, there's going to be a lot of optimism at the beginning, but I am just curious how things will play out over the next 5 years and how true to these promises they'll be able to hold.
Yeah.
And like, it's an age-old line, but I think it is completely true. All that stuff, a lot of it is just bonuses. It's about the software that you show at launch. How compelling is that?
Yeah.
That to me is going to be a huge evaluation of the system.
Go ahead, Damiani.
I was gonna say, the SSD thing for consoles will be a pretty big deal because they just haven't had them. And then when you've put them into the systems, they've always been bottlenecked by the architecture already.
Right.
Like they'll increase a load time of a game by a few seconds, but not as drastic as anything that they could start, not having to use, as I said, these developer tricks. Or you were talking about that feature they touted earlier about I go over Fortnite, I see a person in that game, you're going to jump to that immediately instead of loading into the game, going to the title screen. That's obviously going to need, that technology to get to that faster, essentially, so you don't have to go through that process. But I'm very curious about especially because the Xbox One X had a fantastic GPU in it, but it had a terrible CPU. And I don't know how much I don't know if they mentioned it. It sounds like they didn't. Anything but the CPU in the PS5. And I think along the SSD along with a very good CPU is going to make a huge difference in a lot of these games. Like a lot of this stuff that they're talking about, like everything that's happening faster, could be possible because of that. And I'm more intrigued in that. And I don't think... I forget if Sony's really talked about it or not. I keep blanking because they keep touting all these other features and the stuff I really care about and want to hear about. We haven't gotten to that part yet. Like when you say oh, they made a big deal about the controller and stuff, because that's all they're talking about right now, and it's they're trying to make it sound interesting, and it's it could be maybe, but it's because they're not talking about the other stuff that I care about. And also, as you're saying, Ben, the games, where's the software reveal? The real blowout, they keep saying, this feels like this is the second or third quote-unquote reveal of the PlayStation 5. It's no, where's the event? Where's the thing where they're going to show the hardware? They're going to show the software. I saw that information, but I need more than that,
Ian,
honestly.
can you read that out loud?
I just Googled it,
Yeah.
and it just one site said 8-core/16-thread CPU full reveal later this year.
I mean,
Later this year?
That's what this.
I mean, that's
or later
that-
next year.
that's
Sorry,
pretty
next
good.
year,
Okay,
next
yeah,
year,
I think it's the next year
yeah,
thing.
next
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But I mean, I'd like to see it in action. Like they can talk about all the technical specs they want for both this and for Scarlet, but until I see stuff running on it and see like what the lineup is, that is the ultimate thing that matters the most to someone like me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was it a bad idea to have this article out?
I don't like it's so I don't know what Sony's doing, honestly. This is
That
so
I have
weird.
no idea.
This is so strange.
This is my
This
question.
is like
Yeah.
the weirdest way to reveal a console I've ever seen.
Like
In
they
my
got
head,
they
I-
got the medal. Like they pulled it
What
off.
is
It's
this?
the most bizarre console, ramp up I've ever seen ever. This is insane.
I think Sega Saturn still gets it.
Oh, Shadow Dream.
But yeah, this is weird.
But that
almost
was
envision-
that was a decision. That was a strategy. I see
Sure.
no strategy happening right now.
I,
You see
I
no
actually-
I don't see Sean Layden leaving as a strategy. I
Sure.
don't see.
Oh, yeah.
I'm starting to see less and less what the strategy is of not going to E3, not having PSX, not having going on stage and doing this, not showing the console, not having a game announced for the PlayStation 5 yet. Like, okay, it like what they're doing, which not to bring up like Blizzard again, but it's just like they've just had the same problem recently of like expectations getting a little too high. It's like yeah, we want expectations just to be absolutely crazy through the roof before anyone even just walks out on stage at the next thing that we do. Maybe they're not doing those at all anymore. I have no idea. It's so strange. I've never seen them in a position, and it only compounds the strangeness by how much they just completely grand slammed this generation, and so it's like
Right.
for them to be in that position and then now to just quiet.
Well, that
text,
I think
text.
I think
Like it doesn't matter what you're talking about. This is weird.
I've been trying to think of like what their strategy, if anything, could be, and I think maybe the only generous thing I could think of is like they're trying to get back to the Grand Slam press conference they had with the orchestra where it was just game. And I think the strategy here could be, because this is so weird, the strategy could be get all the tech stuff out of the way so that everyone who's like super interested in that already knows going in, so that then when they reveal it, that can just be a picture with like the facts on it, and then the rest of it can just be like, here are all the crazy games, and focus on just that. Maybe.
I think, Jones, you framing this generation being a Grand Slam for Sony, I think that's the only way this approach is even like functional.
Sure.
I think there's some level of, okay, like when are you going to get to the good stuff? But I think that statement comes with, we assume that the good stuff is coming,
Right.
that the games will be there, that we will want this, that because you've done such a good job on so many of these games, that is happening eventually. Yes, we're frustrated or confused rather, maybe not frustrated, but confused rather at this approach, but we assume that moment is coming. We're waiting for the moment.
Yeah.
I think is kind of how this is all maybe being justified in some way.
So the video that explains haptic feedback that's trying to show me the bouncy wooden bridge, I'm dreading that. I don't want to see that video. And so maybe this conversation is giving me hope that video won't have to exist because it was in a Wired article.
I love those videos.
I mean, yeah, that.
I hate those videos when they talk about games.
Well,
when
no,
we're talking
what-
about a
what-
console,
I mean, what I'm hoping
I
for,
love it, man.
Kyle.
I want to see those factories that are pressing the buttons. Like pressing button,
Wait, do you want to see somebody
button.
just saying like,
Oh.
when we thought of the PlayStation 5, our first thought was tactile haptics. Do you want to like see somebody like talk about it?
I want those words
Yes.
to appear on a screen behind them. Tactile, haptic.
Well, more than one reporter saying feels great. Like,
I almost
thanks.
one
One reporter.
I get you there. But
all right. Imagine the 3DS. Imagine it's like I checked out the 3DS. It works. You're like, thanks. I guess it works. It works, everybody.
I like
Or
almost
like-
prefer that to like Bowser like breathing fire out of a 3DS into Reggie's face. You know what I mean? Like I almost prefer the articles to the videos at a press conference.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's just all about context. There's nothing wrong with the articles. It's just like article Sony and State of Play Sony and Sean Layden hates E3 Sony are three different Sonys. Like that's not a unified commercial message in my mind. That's like something's happening. Something happening that is not what they really would probably want to happen in the best of situations right now at Sony, and they're not going to talk about it. And so that's what's weird.
One of the craziest things, though, is like the oh man, Blue Point, they're working on a big one.
Yeah.
In the context of let's talk about all of this other stuff, that's a little frustrating. It's like that kind of hint, that wink. It feels a little leading on, like, oh boy, it's gonna get real juicy.
It also feels like Sony hooked up that interview. That was their one quote in the entire thing. Is that chunk that I read out loud on this podcast? It felt like part of the Sony
Is that
promotion.
40-second Horizon 2 teaser really going to do it? Is that real? Whoa! Or
It's gonna do it more than the controller, the bouncing bridge video.
It's just going to feel weird at this point. There's so many. I don't know. There's so much inevitability with this. There's so many things I'm
What
like
if they
already
give it
kind of
to
expecting.
little kids? And like the little kid goes like and drops the controller when they the haptic
hurts.
feedback. Yeah. It hurts. I don't like it. And then everyone's like, yes.
it hurts.
Then I'm cool with it. It is time for love and respect.
Love and respect.
Let's do a quick one. Here we go. Salutations, allies. Kamala Khan was announced to be the main character in Square Enix's Marvel Avengers at the New York Comic Con. This has turned my perspective on the game from toaster strudel to Pop-Tart, which is huge. That's a complete 180. Has the recent New York Comic Con info changed any allies' perspective on the game, or am I really that much of a Ms. Marvel stan? Love and respect, Y2 Kyle, 89. If you haven't seen it, new trailer announced or shown, revealed at New York Comic Con. You can watch this trailer. It's pretty cool. So it does have Kamala Khan, who was narrating the old E3 trailer as we guessed. But you see her now, and basically it reveals that the story is about her getting the band back together. It's basically her going around and trying to get all the Avengers who are now have beards and telling them like, hey, let's actually fight together. There's something going on. This is for me. I'm with this person. I'm with Y2 Kyle. Like, it changed my perspective on the game a lot.
I think it's a cool premise for the game. I think it's a cool approach to take.
Yeah.
It doesn't immediately solve my perception of, I don't know exactly how this game just like nuts and bolts is going to be structured. I don't know how, I'm not convinced on how it's going to feel moment to moment.
Sure.
And so I think like the E3 Super did not give me that impression, and I'm kind of waiting to have more clarity, I guess, on the nuts and bolts aspects of Avengers. And so to be like completely sold, that's what I would need.
And I think that's fair. We have nuts and bolts for The Last of Us now. You know, we have nuts and bolts for Final Fantasy VII. We have nuts and bolts for, would we say we have nuts and bolts for Cyberpunk? I think we do more than we do Avengers.
Oh man, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like at least we do more of Avengers. So yeah, I think those are all comparable games timeline-wise. So I get that, man. I get that argument.
It is kind of the anti-E3 announcement, though, because it is a major pivot from the Marvel that we know very well. Like, that seemed like something a lot of people were stuck on, is that, like, I can't come straight from Endgame into this and care.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's neat to be like, you know, here's a character. I like that she's also in Ultimate Alliance 3, but... yeah, like Squirrel Girl or, you know, Moon Knight, someone that people will be like, oh, I don't, you know, I'm hungry for more Marvel characters.
Yeah.
You know, I had no idea who the Guardians were, and I love them. Like, I didn't know Black Panther's lore, now I'm way into this world. You know, and so, like, that's, I think, a really fun opportunity for a character. And seems to fit this story that they're telling really well.
If we still had the Desire Index, Damiani, would this showing bump it up a couple of games?
Broadly speaking, maybe, yeah.
Broadly speaking, maybe.
Yeah. I can see. I mean,
that's the best you can give me. Is broadly speaking, maybe.
I mean, I need something, a piece of media that's gonna like wow me, like more like gameplay wise.
Okay, so story wise, it won't happen.
I'm burned out on Marvel right now. Like,
Sure.
I need like that year break and minimum. So this is coming out too soon for me. Like, this is just gonna be a game that they might show an amazing trailer that pulls me back in. I won't like deny them that, but this is something that after that E3 showing, I'm just like, I don't really know. There's just too much other things happening in that time frame for me to really care that much about this game, which is shocking given how much, you know, I really like the Marvel Cinematic Universe from the movie perspective, but like the game just hasn't really roped me in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ian, you have a take on this?
Oh, I mean, why'd you make me say something? This game, this game just looks bad to me. I don't know.
Why'd you make me say something?
Okay. Hey, you know what? Fair. I want to play one more game. This one's super quick. This is from Garrett Quenzi. With the PS5 launch timeframe being announced, it got me thinking how much I love lackluster launch games. For this game, just choose which game in each pair of average or below launch games you would pick to fill out your console lineup. And so there's no right or wrong answer.
No way to lose.
Yes.
Yay!
I really appreciate this perspective because I think, given the benefit of time, I appreciate lackluster launch games when
Exactly.
they're kind of fun to look back on. In the moment, when you get that new console and you're like, all this shit sucks, it's a little frustrating.
Sure. I mean, we'll go through some of these. I'm like, man, I had such a good time playing the game. I think there is something special about launch titles, even when they're not
It's
very
not like
special.
one per
yeah.
person or something. Like we're fighting for these. Or
No,
anything.
but I do need everybody to answer.
Great.
Number one, Cameo or Red Steel?
Red Steel.
What was
Cameo.
Cameo?
Cameo was
Elements
Xbox
of
360. It was a third-person adventure
You would
game.
become various monsters, and like one was like a big blob, and
I
one,
think I'm
was,
going to pick Cameo.
one was like a plant.
Red Steel, I guess. That's
Okay.
the Wii one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Damiani, you would have said Cameo too?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect Dark Zero or Killzone Shadowfall?
Perfect Dark Zero.
Sure, perfect.
Perfect Dark, yeah.
I think I'm going to say Killzone Shadowfall.
Yeah, whoa.
Yeah.
Perfect Dark Zero Defenders.
Killzone Shadowfall is probably a better
Alright.
game, but I'm a fan.
Okay.
There'd be a lot of pride and be like, oh.
I totally forgot this game. Feel the Magic XYXX.
That's whatever your second answer is, I'm picking the first one.
Yes, this is a DS launch title.
Yes.
I have it, yes.
1-2 Switch is the other one.
No,
no, yeah.
All right.
I'm with these two.
Yeah.
Knack or Trauma Center?
Trauma
Trauma
Center.
Center.
Ian?
Knack.
Oh, and Joan the Knack too. Okay, we're split on that one. Trauma Center Second Opinion, but whatever. Zombie U or Rise Son of Rome?
Oh,
Zombie U
my
is awesome.
Gosh.
I really like Zombie U a lot. Zombie U.
Okay.
I'll
Probably
go with
pick
Ben, sure.
Zombie U.
I like the concept.
Rise
I just
is
always heard it was so
bad.
rough.
Yeah, Zombie U.
I had a great time with Zombie U.
Nice.
All right.
Nintendo Land or Nintendogs plus cats?
Nintendo
Dogs plus cats.
I was going to say Nintendo Land.
Yeah, Nintendo
yeah,
Land.
Nintendo Land. Nintendo Land.
Wow.
Dead Dogs plus cats.
Dogs plus cats.
Okay,
This
all right.
enthusiasm makes me want a Nintendo cat.
It was the plus cats that got me. If it was just Nintendogs,
Yeah,
I would
they
have
added
gone for
cats.
it.
They are the cats.
Genji Days of the Blade or Steel Diver?
Genji Days.
Genji.
Wow, nice.
I remember looking at Steel
Steel
Diver for
Diver
a
is like,
while though in Best Buy.
Just
I remember
ass
like
head, yeah.
It was like a mobile app. It's like, come on.
I can't believe they released that game.
Oh, yeah, not that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Metal Gear Acid or Uncharted Golden Abyss?
Metal Gear Acid.
Metal Gear Acid.
Metal Gear Acid. The
That's
posters
tough.
are so good.
Great poster.
Way better.
I would
way
pick
better
Acid because
posters.
Golden. I think you have to play the touch stuff. You have to use that on Vita with Uncharted.
You do.
And you don't have to do it with Acid.
I remember that game wasn't bad, though,
No,
Uncharted.
no, it wasn't.
Yeah,
it was just.
It was pretty
Wish
cool.
you could have played it with completely traditional controls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Uncharted, you can play a better version of Uncharted games on a
Right,
console.
right.
Acid was kind of just there, you know. They never really.
Yeah, it's unique. That's
Excite Truck or Ridge Racer 10? No, sorry, Excite Truck or Ridge Racer?
Wait, OG
Wait,
Ridge Racer?
OG
OG Ridge Racer.
Ridge Racer. Yeah, Ridge Racer.
That's an easy one, yeah.
Was that on the DS or the?
I've heard a lot
No,
of
Excite
excitement
Truck
for...
was a Wii game.
I've heard
No,
a
no,
lot
no,
of
Ridge
excitement
Racer.
for Excite
PS1?
Truck.
PS1.
Okay. There was some really silly racing game on the 3DS. I think when I first launched.
I think I might pick Excite Truck just because of the enthusiasm
Nice.
that I've seen for it.
Yeah, no hate on Excite
Like,
Truck. Yeah.
if I were to play a Ridge Racer, it probably wouldn't be Ridge Racer 1.
Yeah. I think there was a 3DS launch Ridge Racer game, Jones.
Cool.
Yeah.
Some Excite
yeah,
bots
Ridge
as
Racer
well.
3D.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
there it
yeah.
is.
I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
Batman Arkham City Armored Core Edition. Or Dead Rising 3.
Oh yeah. I mean over. Yep.
Which one?
Batman.
Okay.
I think
Wow.
I think Batman's a better game. I actually think Dead Rising 3 is slightly better than people give it credit for.
Okay.
Sure. I love though that it absolutely requires the pad. So regardless of what console, like this is for my console I'm making.
Yes.
I guess I have to like ship a pad with it that works with my console.
I didn't really think through the scenario that much. I thought we're just picking this game or that game, but you're right.
Like,
that is
whoa,
funny.
this comes to the whole. Whoa,
Batman.
It's a complicated game.
Damiani did Batman?
Yeah.
And Ian?
I feel like you could have more fun with like a friend over with Dead Rising 3. That's
Okay.
the mall one, right? I never played.
No,
No.
that's the Christmas one. No,
It's-
that's the
it's the
mechanic
serious
one
one.
with
Yes.
the cars.
Yeah,
and
it's the
stuff.
leather jacket one.
Correct.
Oh. Batman.
Yeah, all right. It's time for bets. Next week's bet, Little Town Hero, will be released on October 16th. What will the download size be, Brandon Jones?
800 megabytes.
That's a small game. Okay.
Going low.
All right. Ben Moore.
low.
4 gigabytes.
Michael Damiani.
4.3 gigabytes.
I have 3.7 gigabytes. Ian Hink.
That's a tough one.
I did 1.8 Googie Fruits, Kyle.
Nice. Let me lock that in. It's going to be 800. Jones has something. When was the last time you downloaded a game that was less than a gig?
On the Switch?
Yeah.
Oh, Dragon Quest 1 and 2.
Every day.
Oh, okay.
Boink, boink.
Fair
Yeah.
point.
Touche.
Had an answer.
Yeah. Last week's bet, Indivisible launched Tuesday, October 8th. I went to the top 10 most recent reviews on OpenCritic and counted the number of times I saw the word characters. Jones said that would happen 19 times. Brad, 15. Blood, 13. I said 18. Ian said 112. To you at home, just make a guess.
That's a good.
Guess right now. 10 reviews. How many times do you see the word characters?
Playing that game right now, I would imagine a lot.
The answer,
100.
Characters are a big part of it.
the answer is 57.
Yeah.
Which does mean that Jones wins.
Damn it!
I know. Ian,
I knew it would be a lot.
I was so sure you were winning this bet, but somehow Jones still won because he's still closer to 57.
I went too
victory
far.
From the jaws
Yeah.
of defeat there.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't
Take it,
believe
especially
it.
because we're so close.
Yeah.
We're close. These teams.
Oh yeah, Scrappy Little Pigs 22. Gorgeous Gorillas 20. So yeah, just that 2-point spread there. Yeah, it's a little nuts.
Weeks left. Weeks.
Champion Jones.
Weeks left? What are we still? There's so much this year left.
There's like 3 months left.
Yeah.
Weeks.
Weeks.
I feel
I
like
guess all
every
time
day
can be
gets
subdivided
faster.
weeks
into
left.
weeks.
That is
10 weeks left. Sorry.
Before we close this podcast, I want to tell everyone at home, or hey, you might be in your car. I imagine a lot of people in their car because that's when I listen to podcasts. About patreon.com/easyallies. That would be the website you would go to if you're curious about the kinds of things that we do and how you can support us. For instance, people who give us $5 or more a month get this podcast 2 days early. They get it on Fridays as opposed to Sundays, which is pretty neat. Sundays when this podcast goes public. Fridays is when $5 patrons receive it. I guess that's pretty much it. Brandon Jones, you won the bet. You get the right and responsibility to share your Twitter handle with the world. You get to promote any Easy Eyes video you would like to promote. You get the final word on anything you've disagreed with, want to reiterate, or just popped into your head. And you get to sign off with your trademark sign off.
Okay.
Hey, is your trademark sign off in Indivisible? Did it get in there?
It'd be a little less recognizable, wouldn't it? It'd
I
be,
guess so. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sure.
Who would have known they would have picked the most absurd of all of us to be put in there, thus making it more recognizable? Blood Moon Rising, I think, would have fit more, but
Sure, yeah.
yours actually does fit.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay.
She had to change it, though. She had to remove the absurdity from it
They did
in order to
tone it
make it
down.
coherent.
Fair enough.
But that's a heck of a shout out. Thanks for cutting in on my my ending here, Kyle.
On your
Appreciate
Twitter
it.
handle,
At
my
Trailer
apologies. No, do the whole thing. Make sure everybody who knows it's Jones talking when you give your Twitter handle.
You can follow me at Trailer Jones. You should check out Opinion Yell. Ian mentioned it, but it's fantastic. We don't do those that often. I don't want people to miss out on Opinion Yells when they happen.
Is that a show that we do?
That is a show that we do. Best not to describe it in any
Okay.
way. I think you can jump in without any context.
Jones, I am so sorry. I know this is your ending time, but something that I think is so remarkable about Opinion Yell that like almost doesn't get to happen with anything else is the way Opinion Yell gets made is we just stand like right over there and it's like, what do you want to do? And then somebody just comes up with an idea, we shoot it, and then the process continues until the video's done. It's really amazing. It's so just like impulsive and free. It's really cool.
But we can't do it every week, you know?
Right.
You,
Oh,
you
no,
need to
no.
have just the right amount of time. And then when somebody, opinion mail, yeah, it's time.
I do want to make it clear. It's fine to interrupt anyone up until they do their final word.
I'm sorry.
So when he's making
cool.
a recommendation, interrupt, please.
Cool. Final word.
Oh,
Where you want to look?
Free Hong Kong. Cheers. What I'm not a humongous fan of is Final Fantasy VII. What I am a huge fan of is marketing campaigns.
Sexy.